Well, I'm just gonna wait and see if it comes up here too.
You're looking at a delay, so your people are staring at you, talking to them.
Well, if it's delayed here, isn't it delayed on theirs?
We're working through our technical
We're seeing it
difficulties.
at the
Okay,
same time as
okay.
that.
Sorry.
Hi guys.
Hello, hello.
There's nobody there yet, so.
Right. Welcome to Mind, Body, Babies, focus on sleep. This is Morgan Griffith from Sleep P, Infant and Toddler Sleep Consulting, and I am Cynthia Wood from Infant Massage, Charlotte. And we're just going to ramble a little bit while we wait for everyone to come on. In fact, I'm hoping I'm able to see what's going to happen here. Where is it? It's not coming up on my...
That's all right. We could just keep talking.
It'll all work out, right? It'll all work out. Okay, so we're, anyway, if you are not familiar with Mind, Body, Baby, we are a Charlotte-based nonprofit. We're a collective of infant and postpartum professionals. Many of us are parents and are actually even in the industry because of our experiences as being parents. And we all know that the journey into new parenting can be anywhere, can land anywhere between a challenge all the way to overwhelming and even traumatic. So there really aren't any instructions to prepare us for the ridiculousness and the confounding and the sometimes just downright unattractive stuff that happens in the postpartum period. So instead of constantly being or feeling like we don't know what we're supposed to know or left to try to figure out things the hard way, Mind, Body, Baby wants to be able to provide nurturing, knowledge, and support when you need it, because we believe taking care of you is taking care of your baby. Just a couple things real quick. We want to make sure you know we are currently hosting bi-weekly postpartum groups. These are open and free to any postpartum mama. Right now we have one centrally in Charlotte, and we are working on a second one in the Huntersville area. And we are actually in the works trying to find one that's a little bit more accessible for a working parent. But with these, we always have a postpartum counselor, and we always bring in a different specialist. So you have the opportunity to pick their brain and hopefully maybe ease some anxieties if you're worried about anything. But mostly we are a community of mamas in the thick of it, just like you.
And we always tease the specialist before.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So that you can have an idea of if you do need to do a little picking and choosing.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. And then also on Saturday, April 6th, at Noda Brewing, we are hosting our second annual Nurturing Parenthood event, which will gather prenatal, infant, and postpartum specialists there. Again, their whole goal is to provide the knowledge that they feel every parent should know, but they realize in their practice that a lot of parents just aren't aware of some of these really important tools and tips and perspectives.
So that's Saturday, April 6th from 11 to 2.
Right.
Yes,
right.
which is hopefully a good time for all you
Yes.
nappers out there.
Exactly. Well, we've got a 3-hour span. It'll be a beautiful outdoor setting. And, we'll also have some local businesses and some bitty kid activities. So it's a super dog-friendly, kid-friendly, grandparent-friendly, partner-friendly event.
And we've done it before. We did it last year, so we know this is cool.
Yes,
it's going to work.
It's going to be cool. It's just a good, casual, fun time. A really good opportunity for expecting parents as well. So a good way to kind of, honestly, if you've got any things that are making you nervous about what's coming, here's a great time to ask a lot of questions. So all details on all this stuff can be found on our website at mindbodybabync.org. Please definitely share, spread the word so any of your mama friends know about all of it. Okay, so this woman right here is someone that I honestly can say that I would have gladly sold my body to have known 12 and a half years ago. She's going to share with us her most useful tips, and then we're going to be opening it up to questions. If you have questions about sleep and your little family situation, go ahead and put them in the comment section, and we will answer as many as we can. Anything that we're not able to handle tonight, we will go back and kind of touch on throughout the week, so keep checking back.
I'll definitely try to get everything answered.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
That's my ability.
and then note too that we will be taking this whole video and posting it to our website hopefully tomorrow. And then, really importantly, if you do submit a question, know that you'll be put into a drawing to win a free private phone consultation that Morgan is donating to us, and we will pick that winner on February 28th. Okay, so go for it.
Perfect. Okay. And then do we know whether
Yes.
we're gonna work on this?
Yes.
Well, to see
We've
whether
got
you're-
some people that submitted questions ahead of time,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Oh,
so
these are
I'm
them.
gonna
Okay,
figure out why
perfect.
I can't
Well,
see
I'll
this.
get to those. So sleep is tricky because there are just so many moving parts and pieces, and one of the most important things to understand as a viewer, and obviously for me as a practitioner, I just firmly believe that there is no one size fits all approach. And I know that there are books out there, and I love them, and I know that there are methods out there, and I love them. So where I come from is sort of a Cliff's Notes version of all that, so that we can piece it together for you in a way that's meaningful for your child, your family. So that means that some of the things we talk about today may grate on you a little bit. It may not be something that really resonates with you. Understand that I'm talking big picture for a lot of different people right now, but that my specialty and my expertise is really drilling down and helping you as a family, or you with your unique parenting style and your unique child, get to where you need to be. So today is sort of all encompassing, so it might not feel super comfortable and you might not get every question answered in the way that I could do it for you personally one-on-one, but it's a good start. So as for that, let's talk about some of the top points I have, or top tips I have. All right, you guys are probably all gonna roll your eyes at this one. One of my big tips is early bedtimes and early sleep times. And the whole reason why I talk about that is because if we overdo it, if we miss a cue or a signal that our body gives off, our body's gonna react. So if we're going to bed too late, our body has given us a signal, an indication that it's tired. Parents, because we're sort of the ringleaders, maybe inadvertently ignored the cue or signal. We're like, baby's okay right now. We'll put them down soonish. The body's got to react. The body's got to take care of itself. It's got to adapt to that scenario. So when that happens, it gets a little overtired or stressed, so to speak. And stress, I'm not going to really define exactly. I mean, sleep stress, but anyway. So the idea is always, if you have a question in your mind, sleep's not working for me, I've got a lot of night wakings happening, I've got a lot of early morning wakings happening, my naps are super short and unpredictable. Look at your bedtime and think, earlier? Could I do earlier? And that's hard because I get it. We're working, we've got schedules, all that, but to try to kind of say, if I could get this baby down earlier, and I'm talking even 30 minutes earlier, 15 minutes earlier, if you can just train yourself to get the baby down earlier, you may quickly see, hopefully, that child has an easier time falling asleep, an easier time staying asleep restfully throughout the night, and an easier time sleeping for the duration that they can sleep, which in most cases from the ages of very young, like 2-3 months to 4 years old, can be 11-12 hours, sometimes even more in the infant years. So, or in the infant year. What I'm going to talk about today does apply to both infants and toddlers. So, we can always drill down into each specifically as we get more specific questions, but I do focus on infants and toddlers. Okay, so early bedtimes. Oh, wait, I should probably answer this question. What, if I say early bedtimes, what do I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, right,
Yeah.
So, okay, early bedtimes, typically the ones that work best for circadian rhythms for infants and toddlers are anywhere from, everyone's gonna hate me for this, but 6 to 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay, it can actually, I would never go earlier than 5:30 p.m. I get into that with my clients more specifically on a case-by-case basis, but I mean, any earlier than that you don't really want to do, but 5:30 to 7 is a magic time period. And if you can't make that happen because of work commitments, or you feel like you've never made that happen, or your child's always slept well from 7 to 7 or 8 to 8, I implore you to try, because it's probably one of the biggest things.
Well, I suppose if they've slept well from 8 to 8 or 7 to 7, they're probably not listening to the question. Right? Because I was actually on the phone today with a mom who said, I just don't get it. It just out of the blue. So I get this a lot with toddlers. So out of the blue, things seem to just fall apart. Like my child's been sleeping well 7 to 7 or 8 to 8 or 6:30 to 6:30 for years, and then all of a sudden they're 3 years old and it's falling apart. They're waking up early in the morning, or they're fighting their bedtime, or
bedtime's starting to take, it was 20 minutes, now it's taking 45 minutes and an hour and 10 minutes, and they're up for 3 hours. And so, yeah, it happens.
Wow.
So anyway, so when that stuff starts happening, think earlier. Try it. Okay. Dark rooms. That's my number 2 tip. Dark rooms, very important, because the brain needs darkness for the onset of sleep. So I have a lot of families who say, well, what if I nap my child in natural daylight, like in a lighter room, so that I trick them to think that it's, or not even trick them, but so I lead them to believe that it's daytime versus nighttime. I just say, if sleep's got to happen for naps or night, you really want to focus on darkness, because it helps the brain produce the melatonin that's required to bring the onset of sleep. Now, just to be clear, just because the room is dark, that doesn't mean you're going to get high quality sleep necessarily. I mean, that's part of it, but it really triggers the onset of sleep. So we want to focus on a dark room. Dark. Like how dark? Like blackout shades, definitely. Wow. A nightlight is okay, but we want to kind of focus away from, I think one of the commercials these days has it. Is it Pampers? I think Pampers has a commercial where the parent trips and like falls into a nightlight or a whole wall shelf, and then falls in, and the nightlight sprays stars all over it. Oh, it's really funny. So you guys, hopefully some of you have seen it.
Yeah, that darkness was hard when we were in Alaska.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No, part of the year is super easy.
Well, here
the other
too.
part completely.
I mean, Alaska is definitely an outlier in that sense, but here too. So a lot of parents start to say, well, so you're saying then that I shouldn't put my baby to bed at 6 p.m. because it would be broad daylight out. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying you need those dark blackout shades to get the baby down and to trick their brain into producing that melatonin to create the onset of, to help facilitate the onset of sleep. Right. Darkness, and then so let's talk about white noise really quickly. Love white noise. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but it works especially in multi-children households or households with a cute pet involved or with a loud talker parent, or the loud laugher, or the parent who's like, I need the TV up at a certain volume. Okay, so I love white noise, but again, if you've been doing it a certain way for 2-3 years and it just works for you, don't worry about it. And to Cynthia's point, you're probably not listening right now. Oh my gosh. But white noise is best if it's that airplane sound, like shh, instead of like bubbling brooks and winter thunderstorms or summer thunderstorms and jungle sounds and all that. Because the brain has to pick that stimuli up, so it has to process it. So if you just have like a flat white noise, then
you can let it go eventually too.
Yeah,
it simplifies.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
simplify.
That's the other thing. Let's simplify. Let's cut the clutter, the environment. So
that's a big one in massage too.
Yes. Yeah. So part of having a baby is like doing the nursery and adding your little, I don't know, getting kind of fun with your nursery decor.
Over the top.
Yeah, that's actually a good way. Okay, so mobiles, is that how you pronounce it? Mobiles? Mobile's a place. Mobiles is the thing that circles, I think. Did I get that right? Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm not opposed to them if they're stationary, but if they start swinging around and singing some lullabies, it's just one more thing that the brain has to process as far as stimuli goes. So just kind of keep them still or take them away, bring them back for another day. And then generally speaking, especially with toddlers, the room's not supposed to be an entertainment fest. It's not. I mean, it's
where they're supposed to sleep.
Yes, it's for sleep. So I work with a lot of families in New York and San Francisco and big cities who, don't have, like in North Carolina here, a lot of the houses have an extra little room off to the side or a basement set up, or I've seen families transform their garages for some play. So I realize that when space is hard to come by in bigger cities and much pricier to pay for it, that it's not always possible. But in that case, try your best to simplify the room, and you can still bring toys in, but try to clear them out so that it's not a distraction for sleep. And you'll know by your kid like what's going on. The little guy who's going to grab his favorite truck, or all that. All right. So what else? Oh, temperature is a good one too. I say 68 to 72 degrees. I sleep train my own son in an apartment, and I had 3 kids, but for the first child, I sleep trained him in an apartment in San Francisco that had steam heat. That didn't really work out well because I don't know what degree it was. It was just nonsense. So at like 3 a.m. it would be like 84 degrees in the room, and then at like, 7 a.m. it'd be like 60 degrees. So, I mean, thin cotton layers, it's almost like how you dress for weird weather, right? I mean, you just want to kind of do thin layers.
Mm-hmm.
And then, sleep sacks are fine. We can get into all that. Maybe some people have questions about sleep sacks and swaddling. But anyway, 68 to 72 degrees is a good, healthy temperature.
Okay.
You don't want your baby overheating, and obviously if they're too cold, they're going to be not happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, should we dive into the
Let's
question?
dive in. Well, actually, someone just asked to kind of specific on what you just did. Do you have a favorite noise machine?
Yes. Well, no, I mean, honestly, I have a lot of parents right now who are using even apps, but so I don't have a favorite. I think it's just don't overthink it.
It's that white noise, that really solid white noise.
Now I'm totally blanking actually because the dome. So the dome, it's called a dome, and it's don't know. Oh my gosh. It's hard. It's usually I can bring in a sample or something. Maybe next time.
Yeah, well, we can post
but it's called
it
the dome.
on the
Oh yeah, we can do
post
that.
it on
Okay, cool. So it's the
page.
dome, and it just has kind of 2 different settings where it's like you can kind of open up the air vent and it just blasts it much louder, and then you kind of close it. But okay, real quick on white noise. Whatever you use. So let's say I use a phone. The app is fine. It does have white noise. I know a lot of parents are worried about I don't really want apps going in my kid's room and it shines the light every once in a while if I get a text or whatever, or the Bluetooth and the funkiness. So if you use like an actual machine, that's great. So it cuts down on all the Bluetoothy vibes. Second to that though, you want to make sure that you can hear the white noise almost like behind a closed door. So if you were to shut your child's door, that you can kind of put your ear up and still hear the white noise. That's how loud it should be. It should be pretty loud.
Okay.
So
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. So Carrie asked, what's the best mindset or plan when a baby gets off her nap schedule? Like she falls asleep early in the car, or before she gets home, or just something that totally throws the nap for that day off.
Totally. Okay. Super common, right? Because we can't all stay at home and work on our naps perfectly. You're gonna run out and do our errands.
Yes.
All right. This happens a lot. So one, obviously, try to limit the car trips on a daily basis. So if you've got to get out, that's fine. Try to plan ahead a little bit and say, okay, at 2:30 I'm gonna hit Target and just take the baby with me and all that. That's fine. As long as, and I get it with as soon as you get multiple children, some parents have, you've got to do preschool drop off in the morning, preschool pick up in the afternoon. Oh, then they got to get another kid to swim class, and then they got to hit the grocery store. So those days happen, but hopefully they're not happening 5 to 7 days a week. Hopefully they're happening a minority number of days a week. Okay, so if it happens, say your kid falls asleep in their car seat for 20 minutes. All right. Total nap buster, right? Because some parents, there's a couple things you can do. One, you can take the car seat, and I always say once you get out of the car, loosen up the buckles, because we don't want any tight straps hitting any of the sides of the neck. Because there's some blood flow going on here. It's an important blood flow.
Yeah.
So we don't want anything pinching that off. So just loosen up those straps a little bit. If you want, you could probably try to take the car seat itself up to the baby's bedroom and pop it on the floor and put the white noise on and see if the baby kind of transfers and can sleep off a little bit. Ideally, we don't have kids napping in car seats for a long time. So I know Jen would not be, and our pediatric PT wouldn't be. They're just like, working out. So let's say that you're being really good about it and you take the baby out and try to transfer. Some babies transfer, they do, and that's amazing. But a lot don't, and so as soon as you transfer, you try to put them in the crib, they might sleep another 2 minutes, and then they're like, I'm away.
Yeah,
and
especially if they only got that first level of sleep and not the
exactly. So that's exactly it. So you're looking at where they are, might be in their sleep cycle, and they probably didn't hit their deep sleep. Okay, so if the 20-minute nap happens, I always take the baby out of the car seat, provided they're awake. You don't have to wake them per se, but take them out of the car seat. And I just say, if the infant, play on the floor a little bit. Floor play is a beautiful thing because the child can, kind of work around on the floor, and then they can just sort of say, or give you a cue like, okay, I'm tired again.
Mm-hmm.
And more than likely, you'll see that cue pop up in about 45-ish minutes.
Right.
Okay, for kids under 12 months of age-ish. Like me, as they get older, maybe a little bit longer.
Right.
So toddlers, for instance, if you knock out in the car for 20 minutes, that's probably that's probably going to be your nap for the day. So you're going to want to consider making your bedtime earlier.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So really what I say is on that one, take them out of the car seat, put them on the floor, let them wiggle around, assume that they got kind of a second little Band-Aid wind, and then you're going to see them get tired earlier than usual, and that you'd want to respond to that and put them in their crib for a
Right,
nap.
definitely respond to the signals right
Mhm.
away. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, another one is, okay, so my baby doesn't get to sleep on her own, but will take short naps either after nursing, when in a carrier or in the car for the most part.
Okay.
This is there a need for a schedule or nap times for any reason, or is it okay to go with the flow? She's only 5 months old.
Okay.
She won't stay awake for very long, even after she goes to sleep. She's a cat napper, basically.
Okay. This is one of those questions that could get me into so much trouble,
Oh,
right? No, because no, not really. So if I'm talking from a sleep trainer perspective, like you're signing on to try to get the healthiest sleep habits for your baby, and you're committed to trying to teach your child how to sleep independently. Okay, notice how I have all these qualifiers here.
Yeah.
If that's where you want to go, then you gotta work a different system. So if you want your child to be an independent sleeper, and you feel like as a family priority, it's important for your child to get maximum amount of sleep that they can be getting per night, and you want that to be relatively independent of you, then you've got to kind of train away from being so engaged and active in putting the baby to sleep. What was it? Napping on you. Napping on me. And then, and then allowing for those short naps. But if the question is it bad? It just depends on where you're at, because I know, again, this is what I tell parents all the time. If you're at a time and a place in your life right now where you're like, I just don't feel good about this. I feel like I'm losing sleep, the baby's losing sleep, my husband's losing sleep, I'm feeling pressure mount, then probably the answer would be no, it's not great. But here's the cool thing. I believe, and I do this every day with families, that sleep can be trained and taught at different times. Do I think it's better to do it earlier? Absolutely. That comes from me being uber researched and knowing what sleep loss, how it impacts the body, how it impacts the mother, how it impacts the father, and how, of course, that's just the physiology of it. We know there's impact, and there's increasing amounts of research that say more sleep, the right amounts of sleep are better. We're a very sleep deprived culture.
Right, and when you're talking about, especially like the really young babes, it's really about being able to be responsive, looking for those cues, and knowing that there's going to be very short sleep-wake cycles, and making sure you're facilitating an environment so you're getting them used to, not so much training like you're
not training like I'm going to have a schedule and it's going to work, because I personally believe that, in the very beginning, to expect that you can have a really consistent, like super predictable schedule. So here's how that question might be phrased. Hey Morgan, I've got a 3-month-old. Can I teach her to take naps at specific times of the day? My answer is no, you cannot, because at 3 months we've got a lot of naps to get us through the day. There are a lot of variables. There are a lot of feeding times, awake cycles, sleeps. What if the naps aren't perfect? Then you get off kilter. So I just don't want parents to be so laser locked into these schedules, kind of like how the books portray it, that your child should be napping at 9, your child should be napping at 11, your child should be napping at 1, and you're like, but my kid's not napping at 9, 11, or 1, they're not napping at all. So I teach parents to follow their children's natural cues and rhythms and know how to respond. So it's a little bit, so I don't know, I guess going back to the question at hand is, if it feels right for you or feels wrong for you, it can be changed. But let's say that you're feeling like, you know what, I'm feeling like it's okay. I just wanted to kind of see what you thought, Morgan. I say if you're good with it, it's good. But let's say you revisit it 3 months from now, 2 years from now, it can also be fixed.
Right.
So we can always prioritize it.
And it also can go crazy at any time too.
No, meaning that assuming that it does go crazy at one point and you're like, I've had it then someone like myself can come in and write the course.
Oh, so I
hope I answered that.
Yeah, I think you might have answered a good amount of the next one too from
Okay.
Emily. She, newborn on the way, wants to start healthy sleeping habits. So this might be a tip. That one thing that you showed me, that how long the early sleep habits are or times are. What does it look like in the first couple of months? Is it better to go with the flow in the beginning or start establishing routines?
Okay, so newborns. Okay, so I typically don't advocate starting before 8 weeks for all sorts of reasons. I want to see that babies are thriving. I want to understand that the baby's had time to establish their circadian rhythms, and that's something that happens in the first 8 weeks. So a lot of babies in week 4, 5, or 6 are just going to be a hot mess. I mean, that's really like some of the tougher weeks of infancy for parents, because the sleep deprivation is hitting. If it didn't hit the first couple days and not week 2, oh my goodness, by week 4 and 6. So if you are hallucinating in the middle of the night, like I don't even know what world I'm in, that's normal. Yeah, 100% normal.
I spent 2 years like that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is why I want to save you. No, you're saved, but no, so the first 8 weeks, I think you've got to bond with your baby. I love that even parents who are a little bit more focused on schedules, I'm not saying that they're not bonding with their baby, but everyone's going to do it in a unique, different way. But I do think that, it's a little early in the first few weeks. Yeah. However, that doesn't mean you can't think about prioritizing sleep. So what do I mean by that? Okay. Those first 8 weeks I'm not saying you have to stay home every second, but if you do have a day out where you kind of introduce the baby to all your girlfriends at brunch one day, maybe let's not do it again the next day, maybe have a quieter day with the baby at home. If you're starting to see that you're getting in a pattern of, it's just easier to be in the car to nap because otherwise the baby squirms and fusses, or I'm more of an outside of the house person than an inside of the house person, then try to catch yourself if prioritizing that healthy sleep, is high on your list, then try to catch yourself a little bit.
Right.
Feedings though, so that's one thing that I would say are super important. Okay. So your baby's still going to be kind of clustery at sometimes, and these feedings are going to work perfectly. But every 2.5 to 3 hours is a really good interval. So you want to avoid stretching babies to 3 to 4 hours, even with formula. So babies' tummies are super small, and what we're trying to establish, again, it's going to look different in the first 8 weeks, but around month 2 and 3, we definitely want to start establishing these 5 feedings a day, really good, efficient feedings, where the baby's, not taking 45 minutes to feed. We want them graduating out of that, and there are all sorts of tips and tricks to do that. If someone wants to dive into that, we certainly can. See, this is hard because I have so much stuff in my head.
Exactly.
I could literally go down rabbit holes every which way. But I would just prioritize on feeding. If you're having any trouble feeding, these first couple weeks are really a good time to reach out to lactation specialists.
Absolutely.
We've got those on
yes, we do.
at My Body Baby. It's also a good time to focus on your healing and your bond. So we've got specialists who can help with that.
Absolutely.
I feel like it's those first 8 to 10 weeks, the first 8 weeks, this is kind of time to remember that yes, you brought this baby into the world and everything immediately transitions to be about baby, but not to forget yourself. That's part of the bond. When you forget yourself, it starts to get a little stressful and hazy, and obviously sometimes it gets stressful and hazy even if you don't mean it to, right? Because there's all sorts of fluctuating hormones and all sorts of stuff. But this is a good time to sort of, I like to every week take a little bit of inventory on where I am personally. So I was talking to Casey, who's on our board, and she was mentioning it's not a bad idea to go back and revisit that, that form that they give you in the hospital, or if you're not there yet, they will. I think they give you that form that says, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling a little weepy, or are you feeling overwhelmed? And you kind of it's a little awkward because I think you kind of circle 1 to 5 on it, but it's not the form that matters so much. I feel like it's more
the exercise of checking.
Yes, checking in. So, try that, and then that. So those are what those first weeks are about.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. with that. Chrissy, this is kind of a general line, so who knows? But she's got a 10-month-old, and she's my baby won't nap. How do I get it to?
Yes. All right. So this is okay. Actually, a couple of different things about this. So when you say your baby won't nap, my next question is not at all. Like we're just up all day. Are they in daycare? Are they at home? Lots of different questions, and I know that's kind of hard to go through. But okay, let's try our best right now with what we got. So 10 months old, not napping. Most of the times that means like my baby's kind of sort of taking a nap, but it's not a great nap. If there's no sleep at all, then either they're just miraculously sleeping really well at night, or the night sleep's a hot mess too, or even not in hot mess category, but maybe it's fragmented. So usually if you don't have a good napper, you've got some fragmentation in the night sleep, because sleep is so cyclical, right? So it really, kind of like our other hormones, they're so cyclical. So I wish I could put the stop button on my PMS hormones.
Right.
Like, like, okay, they're coming, don't want to. So sleep's the same way. I can't put a stop button or a start button on those. Mm-hmm. So they just go day in, day out, day in, day out. And so it's important then to say, okay, if something's not right, then something's not right in the bigger picture cycle. So I kind of think if your baby is getting, let's say at 10 months old, they can get 12 hours of sleep a night. They totally can. Mm-hmm. Not all kids are. So now I have some parents who are like reporting in saying, well, my baby gets like 11 and a half. I'm like, all right, fine. But I got some parents who are like, my kid gets 10 and a half, or 10, or what about 8? 8 all in a row. They get 8 all in a row. And then I started going and feed them, and then they get another like 3 or 4. I'm like, all right, but that's not your 12 of unfragmented complete sleep. So I would then expect that their next issue is my naps. Like the naps aren't super, because there's a break in the cycle. Mm-hmm. So you almost have to look at the big picture. How do I get her to nap? So we want to look at the night sleep. We'd also want to make sure that the nutrition is right on the money. So we want to make sure that we're, if they're waking at night, that they're not waking to feed unnecessarily. Mm-hmm. And then also focusing on those awake cycles. So we want to make sure that your baby's not staying up too long at any given time.
Right. And then going back to some of those things, is it going in a dark room? Are we kind of simplifying things so you can calm down? I mean, we've all, even as adults, we go to bed and have a hard time like letting things go. Right. And that is something your body has to learn to come down from. Their systems have to learn these things, and they don't have any system in place to have that. So we literally have to teach their bodies
sleep
how
is,
to do that.
Sleep is a learned behavior. Yes, it is. But it also means that if we're going to learn, we want to try to set our kids up for success, right? So this is huge. If I have high expectations if I have expectations for my child to be a good napper or a good night sleeper, then it's on me to learn how to set my child up for success. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. And there are quite a few checklist items to make sure that that's the case. Then it's reasonable to expect that your child sleeps 12 hours a night and has age-appropriate naps. So at 10 months old, for example, age-appropriate naps, I would say, is 2 naps a day that last an hour and a half in length for a general average of about 3 hours of daytime sleep. Now, a lot of sort of, when I say daycare, I don't want to be like bashing daycares. I'm not. I'm not at all.
You don't get to necessarily control the naps.
Right.
So
that is exactly it. That's kind of what I mean. So in the daycare environment, your child might be in a room or on the borderline of transitioning to a room. So I get a lot of parents who say, well, my kid's transitioning to 1 nap right now because they're preparing my child for the 1 nap room. And that gets a little dicey because then you're preparing for sleep loss with sleep loss. Don't want it. Don't want that to happen. So that can get
sleep. So if they need it, you need to help.
Chrissy, I feel like I'm not totally answering the question.
It is.
It was a broad question.
Yeah, it is very broad.
But not a bad question.
It's
how do you get her to nap? One thing I would do is focus on her awake times or the baby's awake times. You didn't say it was her, Eva. Oh, her. Yes, her. Okay, on her awake time. So I would make sure that in the morning hours that you're not going over 2.5 hours, And then as you get into the afternoon hours, you can probably extend it by a little bit as well, just going off her cues and signals. But sometimes if we have our baby awake for 4 hours, let's just say, because she's able to do that, we're missing the window.
Yeah.
And when we miss the window, like I said in the beginning, our body sort of says, well, I gave you the cue, but you didn't do anything with it. So I'm going to react and I'm going to adapt and I'm going to push that cortisol, that stress hormone. So I'm going to give myself a little second wind. And so when that happens, then it gets really hard to read a baby's signals because now they're just kind of all over the map. Agitated or hyper.
And that's when you have a tool of infant massage in place that can help you out.
Totally.
But
Okay,
you have
so
to build a habit.
Well, what would you do? So like.
Well, it depends. If infant massage would be fabulous in these kinds of situations, but you'd have to start and build the habit first. So you are training their nervous system to understand that this kind of intense sensory input. We're helping their body figure that out. That takes some time first.
Yeah.
Once you have that built and they have that muscle memory, that sensory memory, then it becomes this great tool when they're just overwhelmed and they need help coming down because they've got that extra cortisol and they're just kind of wild.
That's so interesting though, because I feel like I could get a massage any old day of the week and I don't get them all the time, but I mean, I wonder when it changes, like when it doesn't, or has
it's because
has touch just become a part of that muscle memory?
It's because, their nervous systems are really, really young.
Yeah.
So it is just so much more intense that, because we are not doing light, quick touch. We are doing very intentional, stronger touch. And so it is a very intense sensory experience. So their body has to, it is a stressor in its own right. It's a good stressor.
Yeah.
It releases great hormones,
Totally.
but it is something their body has to get used to.
Totally.
It's just to get used to.
Sense.
And but yeah, that definitely is one of those places where infant massage is a big tool.
There was a question that came in on the comments.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and this is a very detailed one, so this might be helpful. Okay, the baby's 8 months old, naps very well, twice per day.
Okay.
Goes to bed at 7:30 every night, white
Okay.
noise, very dark room, but wakes up twice a night and eats. Eats asleep and then goes back to sleep. Eats asleep and then goes back to sleep at 7. Breastfed only baby.
Okay, remember what I said about early bedtime? So this is where I start. So you've got a baby waking in the middle of the night, so I would argue, as much as I know a lot of parents don't want to hear this, but I would argue that if you could slide that bedtime a little bit earlier, I want you to slide it, if you've got fragmented sleep, I would say start as early as 6. But if if it's feasible to start in the 6:30, 6:45 range, of course, I get it. If you're a working mom and you do not walk in the door, and if you do walk in the door and you're doing everything you can just to get the baby down, and 7 is or even 7:30, sometimes it's just earliest, then again, we get into this sort of informed choice-making thing as parents. It's like, I gotta work, right? I gotta put the roof over the baby's head and our head. This is something that just has to happen. So, to calm the stress hormone, to try to alleviate the likelihood, or diminish the likelihood of a night waking or 2 happening, move the bedtime earlier. Yeah, we sometimes get into tricky territory where that's not possible for everyone. So then we have to say, okay, obviously I would like you to stay out of the room as much as possible so that we're not fragmenting that sleep more with a feeding. How old were we? 8 months old?
8 months, yeah.
So, okay, 2 things. One, any pediatrician's gonna probably say, I don't need to feed the baby. They're 6 months old. But if the baby's used to a night feeding, I like to use a wean approach.
Okay.
So, because I think, their brains are accustomed to getting a feeding, so let's not just go cold turkey just because we want to make sure that the daytime feedings are done properly to support no night feedings, so to speak. So I would just kind of want to look at the feedings, and then I would say try to move the bedtime earlier to calm that stress hormone that might be building toward the end of the day. The other thing I would say is this: if you've got a baby napping twice a day, great, right on the money, right on the mark. How long are we waiting between waking up from that last nap and bedtime? Also, is that last nap good? Is it like an hour and a half, 2 hours, or are we talking cat nap? Because I get a lot of families who say, okay, my baby's napping, 45 minutes in the morning and then 2 hours at the end of the day. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But if you have a long period from waking from the last nap and bedtime for the baby's age, it's going to make it much more difficult on the baby to, 1, fall asleep easily, you might have that box checked. 2, sleep restfully through the night. I don't think that box is checked right now. And then 3, move through an early morning waking. So again, you might have that box, the early morning waking box checked, but you're feeding at night and that sleep is fragmented. So if you're gonna start with anything, earlier bedtime on that one.
Okay. Okie dokie. Sandra asks, how do you change a habit? Daughter likes to rock to sleep, but before was an independent sleeper. Daddy spoiled her.
Dad. Such a sucker. Well, okay. How do you change a habit? I've done a lot of reading on how to change a habit because I'm super interested in it. So here's the good news. We all can change our habits, but it's hard. So it's not going to come without frustration, and it's not going to come without tears. So let's say that, I'm going to use this example. So let's say every day at 3 o'clock, I'm in the habit of eating an Oreo or 2, right? Okay. So I get away with it. The scale doesn't change. I know it's not good for my body, but like, I actually don't. But like, this is my example. Sounds good. But let's just say that, you know, it's not ideal for my body, but it happens. Okay, so I'm in the habit, and then so I get a personal trainer knock on my door, and they're like, "Listen, we got to change everything. These Oreos have to go." So I'm sitting there and I'm saying, okay, well, I can do that, but I'm not gonna be happy about it, right? So I can do it. You can guide me through it, but I'm not gonna be super stoked about it. So what I'm saying to you is, anytime that you change a habit, it's doable, but you're gonna feel some pressure from the baby, and they're gonna get frustrated.
Okay.
Are we good?
He's got to pick up the kids, so I just want to make sure he's.
I was sensing some communication going on.
Our cameraman.
We've got our cameraman helper back here. He's got carpool duty, and I was sensing this.
How do I?
There's something happening, and I'm talking about how to change.
You know what? You can just tell me, hey, go pick up the children.
Sorry. So important. Wait. So just to make sure, no, you're fine. I was trying to stay focused.
Sorry.
No, wait. So how to change it can be done. It's not easy. I doubt it'll come without some tears and frustration. How do you do it? I mean, again, this is getting into that territory where I don't want to tell you one way is the only way. I mean, you could choose sort of a wean approach, so your husband, 1, isn't the person to go in and rock the baby. 2, try to believe in your baby a little bit more, in the sense that, and we do this a lot as parents, so, okay, shoe tying is an example, right? All right. I don't know anyone who's super excited to teach a kid how to tie a shoe. However, you do it because you believe that your child at some point, 1, needs to do it, and 2, can do it, right? You believe that with enough practice and with enough space to learn, that your child will be able to do it. And there are going to be a lot of frustrations and thrown shoes and I can't and I don't want to, and whining and crying. Right. But you stick with it, and maybe, you know, if the time isn't exactly right, like I always say, like, I'm not going to teach my kid how to tie shoes right before we leave the door, leave the house for preschool, because hello, that's just a rush or just, you know, too much going on. So again, pick a time in your life where you feel like your nerves and your anxieties are a little bit more settled before you try to believe in your baby a little bit more and say, listen, we don't have to be quite so hands-on. You have done this before. You have the tool set. You're out of practice. You need space to relearn. That might not come without tears. So again, if crying is not up your alley, and it totally isn't up anyone's alley, to be honest.
Right.
I haven't met one parent who's like, whatever. No one likes it. But if you can put that crying and that frustration into the right context, I'm giving my baby a little bit more space. I'm believing my baby can do it. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow night, but if I commit to them over the next week or even 2 to give them more space to learn and practice, you can break that habit. Okay.
Yeah, it's never. Yeah, it's nothing. Nothing about any of this is easy, really.
No, it's not.
Okay, Lacey says, my 8-month-old is still napping 4 times a day, 45 minutes each.
Okay.
Wake up 3 times a night. Primarily formula fed, but won't eat more than 6 ounces per feeding.
Okay.
He has had tubes put in his teething, so that's happening right now.
Buddy
too.
boy.
Yeah.
That's no fun.
No,
Okay,
it's
so
not.
that's happening. So we have to give that a little bit of grace. Never fun with that. Teething, I do kind of encourage parents to teach through teething, because if you really kind of, I mean, yes, it's the drool and all sorts of other things going on, but it's gonna happen, like in and out over the course of 2 years, for the most part. So to stop and go
Right.
because we think the baby might be teething or might be cutting a tooth. I mean, the reality is that discomfort is going to happen right before that tooth pops through the gums. Again, I don't know. I always feel awkward saying like, oh, it's not that bad. Like, I'm sure teething pain is not fun for kids. So I don't want to say that.
Well, again, they also don't know what it is. I mean, there's a lot of things they just don't know that it's not that severe.
Yeah.
Everything for them is a new experience. And
Right.
so, and they, in many ways, can not know if this is them being threatened or, I mean, it's just like, depends. They don't have perspective until they get older, so.
Yeah, not my area of expertise on the psychology.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, what I want to say, this is me talking personally, just as a parent. I'm like, I don't remember it. They don't remember it. Like, my kids didn't remember it. But I don't know. I think there's also something to be said for somebody maybe more with a psychology background who's like, hold it, lady. Like, maybe the kid's being impacted by their teething pain. I don't know. But I do say, if you can sort of, again, contextualize it, and if it's not your biggest pain point, okay, no pun intended, but if it's not your biggest pain point as a parent and you feel like you can work through it, then I do encourage you to work through it. And not stop, go, because then we run the risk of sending our kids mixed signals about, like, well, how come some nights when I cry, you come in with like the Tylenol and make this big to-do,
Right.
but then the next night I do it and you're just not there, and then a couple nights later you are, and then you're not. So the child does get confused, because at that point they're old enough to really be reading those mixed social cues that you're giving
And a
them.
lot of routine is safety for them.
Yes.
Not consciously, but it's
Oh,
part of the
absolutely.
body, yeah,
It's
so-
anxiety. It's de-escalates that anxiety. So it's definitely consistency and predictability for them. Makes it easier. Okay, wait, I got off track again. So the naps are the naps are your issue.
Yeah.
Honestly, so 45 minutes is the completion of a sleep cycle.
Okay.
Okay, so that's cool. So you're checking the box there. However, at that age, at 8 months old, you need to be consolidating those naps. So your baby possibly did not learn or practice how to bridge the sleep cycles. Okay, so here's what I mean by that. If you take a 45-minute nap, after you get to a certain age, you can weave or bridge your sleep cycle into the next cycle that's there, so that 45-minute nap becomes an hour and a half nap. Okay.
Right.
It's cool, but it's hard to do. Some kids do it more naturally than others, but they kind of wake up, and if the moms, I've noticed, kind of just from my personal experience with hundreds of families, that the jumpier parents, the parents who are like, oh, the baby's awake, I gotta go to the baby, that parent then runs the risk of sort of not allowing the baby just enough time or space to bridge the sleep cycle. Now, the parent that sort of pretends that they're like on the west wing of some like grand mansion is like, I'll get there in a minute / 5 minutes, honey, to pick you up. Then the baby has a little bit of time to possibly fall back asleep. So again, hard to do because it sounds all nice and possible here, but like when your baby's waking from a nap screaming their head off, you're like, well, why am I not running?
Well, she is saying that won't feed more than 6 ounces per feeding, so that sounds like
so that's another thing.
Yeah.
So tired babies, so babies who aren't getting enough sleep. So we know we've got a nap issue, right? I'm just going to tell you right now, 4 naps at 8 months old, I would say you're looking at the potential issue of that sleep not being consolidated. We want it to look more like an hour and a half, not 4:40. We want 2 hour-and-a-half naps, not 4 45-minute naps. And then a lot of people say, well, it's a completion of a sleep cycle, so what does it matter? Well, it starts to matter because if you're not awake and asleep for the right amount of time per age, then you're not going to be an efficient feeder. So now you've got a baby who's taking 6 ounces is not a bad amount to be taking. Again, I'm just going to clarify for everyone that total intake on average per day should be 24 to 32 ounces of milk. Whether you're on solids or not, 24 to 32 ounces after 3 months of age, 24 to 32 ounces, and even a little bit earlier, of milk. So that means ideally that is dispersed across 5 feedings. Okay, so if you've got intake for 6 and you're feeding 4 times a day, you might be hitting the minimum. If you're hitting 5 times a day, that might work. But if you've got night feedings, which we do, we know that something's off.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If we've got night wakings and feedings, we know something's off.
There's definitely night wakings.
So what I would do is, what do we fix first? Okay, so it's like this is one of those things where I could spend an hour consulting with you just to kind of write all of the moving parts of pieces. But I would really focus on trying to bridge those naps. So if you've got a 45-minute waker, my question to you would be, is it possible that you stay out of the room a little longer to see whether the baby can bridge into the next sleep cycle?
Right, and I guess some of those main things too is the room dark. Is
the room dark? But actually the main thing there, so yes, all of that stuff that I covered.
Will that help the bridge is my question.
Yes, but what will really help the bridge is if your baby knows how to fall asleep independently.
Right.
So if you're rocking your baby to sleep, they're going to wake up at that 45-minute end of sleep cycle mark naturally, and they're going to say, like, where's my butler bell? Ding, 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 ding. Right. Mom, can you come rock me back to sleep? And the answer is kind of like, you're awake. Why are you awake right now? I'll come in and get you. Mm-hmm. But it's like, oh, no, I need to sleep more, but I just needed you to rock me back to sleep. Now, I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to actually come in and try to rock back to sleep. I mean, some parents do, but now that means that you've got to, like, be on call, basically, for all of these naps. So ideally, what you would do is stay out longer. Mm-hmm. If you can stay out for, like, I mean, in the beginning, though, it's going to be hard because I'm going to tell you to do this, and you're going to try it tomorrow morning and say, okay, I'll stay out for 10 minutes, and the baby's just not going to do it. It's going to take a bit of training.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those naps would need to consolidate. We'd want to make sure that those feedings are happening every 2.5 to 3 hours. I just think the feedings are going to not be efficient if these naps aren't consolidated and we're not getting sleep at the right times, and if we don't lick those night wakings.
Right.
You're just going to have some issues with that.
Okay. Yeah, it just says she's also in daycare, which is probably
okay. Yeah, all right, that is okay. So then on the weekends, when the baby comes home from daycare, let's try our best early bedtimes to come out of this sort of like fragmented sleep during the day. So early bedtimes on the weekends, definitely no later than 7. Hopefully you can get into the closer to the 6-ish range. Really try to focus on getting her down. Don't run your daycare schedule at home on the weekends. Don't. Like it, so for instance, sometimes daycare stretches a baby's too long. So if you feel like that might be the case and you're seeing signs earlier, don't be afraid. I get a lot of parents who are like, well, on the weekends I have to run daycare schedule, otherwise I'll go back to daycare and then they'll be all messed. But the reality is that let's use the weekends as our opportunity to catch up on some sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and then to work on making those naps longer if you can. So hopefully.
Right. Okay, so let me see what else we've got here. We've got another one that has a pacifier, just or 2, that goes to sleep, and any way to gradually take it off. It's just to go to sleep, but yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Just because. Okay, so yeah, I mean, you could cold turkey it. To be honest, at 2. I mean, I've done a lot of cold turkeys at 2.
We totally did. I have twins, and we did the whole thing that we just. I think they were closer to 2.5, but that they'd only been doing night times for a long time.
Cut it.
Well, we basically just kind of did this thing that they were going to get to pick out a toy for it. And so we made a big deal of them actually throwing away their binkies that participated in, and it really actually went way better than we thought.
Totally.
I mean, every baby's different, but
I just think 2 is a good age. I mean, I like it. I think honestly, and again, I'm talking from my personal perspective, definitely out of turn if we're getting into psychology because I don't have that background, but I think me personally, like I've caught myself projecting a lot of my own sort of fears or misgivings on my kids in those moments. So meaning, oh my gosh, like if my baby doesn't have her lovey or her thumb or her passy or whatever, then I imagine how lonely she might feel, or how untooled she might feel or be to be able to get herself back to sleep or whatever. So a lot of times I notice that I end up doing that. I've lost my co-pilot for I'm carrying on the show. So I noticed just how you might run into an issue with that. But I don't know. I would just say if you can do cold turkey, that's fine. Other options might be weaning. So meaning that you know, I've heard parents like slowly cut the passy down. I don't know if you're into that. Sometimes taking.
I was a speech therapist would
They
be
tell
telling
you
you
that?
get off that.
We've got speech therapists in our group.
Yes,
don't
we do. Yes,
All
we
right.
do.
Yeah, no, I know it's good to be off of it, so I
Yeah.
love that you're thinking about weaning, but I don't know. I mean, honestly, I would try cold turkey. Anytime that you do anything cold turkey, whether you're okay, so this is kind of good because a lot of parents are like, well, how do I move from bottles into a sippy cup? My kid's just not liking that, or they're just flat out refusing to feed, or you know, they're angry that they don't have their passy at night. It's gonna be 3 to 4 nights of treasure and mayhem, potentially.
Well, I know, like Jen, our physical therapist would actually probably say if they're not, give a straw a try.
Totally.
Because straw is actually, she says, is actually a more
That's right.
expected skill over a sippy cup.
Yes.
Of course, it's often a little messier, but
Yeah. So in the sippy cup transition.
Yeah, sorry, that's where I was going with this.
Don't give your kid a straw in place of their pacifier.
No.
Don't do that. I was like, what a joking inside. Okay, yeah. So I mean, again, anytime that whatever method you do, if you do cold turkey, just give yourself a grace period of 3-ish, 4-ish days, and then I would go cold turkey. Like, don't send mixed signals in the meantime, saying, well, you can have your passy in the car. I just didn't want you to have it at bedtime.
And honestly,
Totally
I think if
mixed
you just kind of, you know, especially you talk to them a little bit ahead of time, not just
Plant
say,
the
okay,
seed.
today we're doing, totally.
Plant the seed.
You know, make it something exciting, something they can look forward to, and something that makes them feel bigger. And especially at 2, I think that they're definitely at a place they can do it. And
Totally.
I think you can
And
be
not
really
remember it
surprised.
too much.
Yeah.
Unless
I mean,
you
like,
keep
and
reminding
I
them.
have really highly sensitive kiddos.
Yeah.
So I was really expecting the worst. I was really expecting
So funny because no, absolutely. I mean, I think sometimes, and that was kind of to my point. Sometimes you project or expect the worst based on what other things are happening, and then all of a sudden it ends up being like not that bad. But
Right. Okay, let's take one more because I know you have sick kids at home too. So Carla has a 3-year-old that's having nighttime accidents several times a week. They have limited water after dinner, and he goes potty right before bed. Any suggestions? It's really messy since he's asleep.
Wait, 10 accidents a night? Or
No, 3-year-old, so nighttime accidents several times a week. So maybe not nightly.
All right, so I guess, I mean, again, this is a little hard because I always want to ask like 5 questions.
Yeah,
or something.
sure, yeah,
Wait, should we try asking? So maybe you can check back in and tell us whether you are using a nighttime diaper. So if the child is so this is a common question. If your child's potty trained, so a lot of people start at 2.5, some at 3, some whatever. I'm not going to judge when you start potty training,
Right.
but the point is that when child's day trained, so to speak, there's sort of development in the brain that needs to happen. I believe that the child might not be prepared to make it through the night. So if that's the case, you would use the nighttime diaper still or a pull-up. And if the kiddo is taking their pull-up off or saying like, I don't want this, then you could get back into like an extra large sleep sack, flip it around and zip them up in the back so they can't footed pajamas. Everyone's like, just put footed pajamas on backwards. But you could put footed pajamas on backwards, but I would cut the feet because you can't get their feet in backwards.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So you almost have to like cut the feet. But
So you said no nighttime diaper.
Yeah, I would just get back to a nighttime diaper. I mean, I know it's not fun to get into the expense of that, but honestly, go there because your child's brain might not be developed enough to where they can actually hold their pee during the night.
And is it also because there's some kids that are really, really deep sleepers,
Yes.
and maybe he's not feeling the sensation.
Yeah, but that's all sort of like development. So, I mean, I know a lot of kids will go, and I mean, I know everyone's got this fear of like, oh my gosh, what if it goes on until they're like 12 years old? But I mean, truly, the reality is that these kids, they will develop on the daytime and can control everything during the daytime, but then at night, they're just not developed yet to hold it through the night. That does not mean that your child is not normally developing, or that anything's really immensely wrong. But I would just get back into the nighttime diaper scenario. 1, to de-stress any of those accidents on your child, right? Then 2, to hopefully alleviate the fragmentation of sleep. But a lot of times when there's an accident, we give our kids this vibe and this sort of cue, like, oh, I'm not happy about this again. You know, we're sort of like huffy and puffy, and even if we're quiet and even if we're like, it's okay, like we have this sort of strain in our voice.
And they have us figured out. They know.
And they totally do. So I would just try to get back to that nighttime diaper and just use it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And don't hopefully you don't have the expectation that they have to make it through the night, because that wouldn't be true at all.
Right.
Hopefully that.
Okay, yeah. All right. I think actually we got a good chunk of these.
Yeah.
Feel free to keep leaving questions, and we can
Totally.
touch on them this week. And thank you for showing
Thank
up.
you so much, you guys. It's so important to us that you're so committed and you know, to
Interested
asking
in
your
really
questions and so
helping, yes.
interested. And I love being a resource to people who do have sleep questions. It's such a huge part of our life.
Right.
I hope
It is. It's
you
so
know
important,
that. Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions that kind of get attached to sleep training and sleep trainers. So hopefully you know that my intention is just to help and do it in a way that's sort of unique and personal to your families, even if that doesn't come across so well in this session.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I definitely have seen the way you work, and it's just so in depth, and it's very you're working. It's there's no general about any of it.
No, yeah, we get in the weeds when we work individually.
Yeah, and we'll be sharing. Like, she has this great graphic that's really good, especially for the new mamas that really show the how long they should be able to go, awake, sleep time. That's it's general, but it's really a good starting space if you're having your first little one and it's brand new. We'll post that in a little bit. Definitely just keep checking back on our website, on our Facebook, on our Instagram. We've got a lot of things coming up, and the whole goal is that we're here to support you guys because we remember.
And we're talking about sleep at Belly's this.
Yes, we are. That's right. Our postpartum group at
more.
Bellies and Babies. This Thursday, Morgan's going to join us again, and it's
kind of like this format.
Yeah.
Just
in person, and we have 2 hours, and so
Yeah.
and then so it's the same kind of thing. You'll probably learn a lot of other people's questions too.
Yeah. So that's Bellies and Babies in Charlotte on
Monroe.
The one in Monroe.
Yeah.
At what time?
10
10.
to noon on Thursday.
10 to noon.
Thanks a lot, you guys.
Bye.
I'm
Good
gonna
night.
turn it off.
Sleep tight. All right. Okay. It's blinking.